it's safe to say that we're still a fair ways off from the release of FF7R Part 2. We have some stuff to tide us over, like Ever Crisis releasing next year, a demake/remake of the entire compilation as well as a game version of Advent Children, FF7 Remake Intergrade with a new Yuffie DLC episode Intermission releasing in less than a month on PS5, and Final Fantasy Fortnite. In all honesty, I thought we were pretty much done when it came to new content until the release of Part 2, but it turns out that isn't all. In the last 2 weeks, we've gotten the announcement of 2 new books related to FF7 Remake, so I'd like to take some time to go over the 2 today, detail what we know so far, and what my thoughts are on each one. Side note, the translations and details of these once again come from Audrey on Twitter, who I'll be linking down below. Go give her a follow. Okay, let's do this. The first one of these I'd like to talk about today is the Material Ultimania Plus, releasing in Japan. Now, I'm not really versed when it comes to what Ultimanias contain or how they were released. I've never really collected any of these, so apologies if I get something wrong here. But to my knowledge, Square Enix last year released the Final Fantasy VII Remake Ultimania, releasing exclusively in Japan. This, along with other Ultimanias released from many other Square Enix games, released behind-the-scenes information, interviews, artwork, things like that. To this day, however, that Ultimania has not released outside of Japan. If you want to read this, Japanese language and all, you have to import it. But later last year, they confirmed that they're releasing yet another Ultimania, this titled Material Ultimania. That released in October of 2020 in Japan is now being brought over to the West in December of this year. Oh, we're dealing with Atlas speeds of localization. Again, I could have been wrong in an aspect there, which apologies if I am, feel free to correct me down below. On May 13th, however, Square Enix announced a new Ultimania, once again exclusively for Japan, titled Material Ultimania Plus. However, just like the original Ultimania, there is no confirmation of any sort of English release at the moment. The cover itself features the gang standing on the edge of a road in Midgar, which might look similar to some of you. That's because it's actually the key art that we got last year prior to Remake's release, but now the camera is actually behind the group with them staring off into the sunset. This cover is just gorgeous. I've always loved this key art from the original, so I think it's actually really cool that we're getting it from a new perspective. Plus, the artwork is really beautiful. Now, if you're a fan of the channel, you're probably aware that I haven't covered the Ultimania before. Really because, in all honesty, I've never felt a need to. With this new version, however, we have something new to talk about when it relates to the contents of the book. According to Audrey, quote, "The FF7R Material Ultimania Plus contains development contents that were not covered in the previously released FF7R Material Ultimania book back in October 2020. This includes CG art of characters, enemies, locations, and more within the game. There will also be a new Q&A with co-director Toriyama where he talks about memorable scenes in the game as well as discuss the script from a certain scene that will offer clues to the next installment. In addition, character lines spoken during battle as well as NPC lines when you walk around the city will be shown too. CG and concept art of Yuffie and development info about the DLC along with scenario breakdown will also be available in this book." Okay, so for the most part, none of this stuff is too out of the ordinary. But the reason I'm covering this is due to the obvious part, where it says Toriyama will be talking about the script from a certain scene, which will give hints to the next part. This is huge, this being our first sign of hints from Square Enix about the next installment. There's also talks about him discussing episode Intermission too, which is also really exciting. Although I do find it a bit disappointing that this book doesn't have any English release confirmed at the moment, given what Toriyama will be discussing. Audrey has mentioned that she'll be translating this when it comes out in July, so keep an eye out on her Twitter for that. Either way, it's pretty damn exciting. Not just about the part 2 stuff, but hearing some of the stuff Toriyama will have to say about the Yuffie episode is also really cool stuff. But obviously the highlight for me is hearing some hints about part 2. That's easily one of my most anticipated games this generation so far, so having the chance to hear more about it is really exciting to me. We'll have to see what he says in particular when it comes out in July. But that's not all. Even if all we were getting was just some hints towards part 2 with Material Ultimania Plus, I'd be satisfied. But Square is, milking this, to be honest. Square Enix announced on the same day they announced Ultimania Plus that they'll be releasing a light novel featuring the characters of Aerith and Tifa. The title of the light novel is Final Fantasy VII Remake Trace of Two Pasts. The cover, being pretty nice looking might I add, features Aerith and Tifa standing with their backs against what I believe is a clock post on the upper plate. This cover is really damn nice looking, and not as much of Material Ultimania Plus as if you ask me, but it's still nice nonetheless. If you're curious as to what the summary is, Audrey has it covered. Quote, "No one was there who wanted to listen. No one was there who wanted to talk. The two heroines who cover the world of Final Fantasy VII, this is the unknown story of their different paths." The light novel itself will be written by Kazushige Nojima, which should ring a bell if you're a fan of FF7. He was the scenario writer for the original FF7, Crisis Core, Advent Children, FF7R, including the writer for the story itself, even writing the lyrics for the main theme Hollow, on top of him being the scenario supervisor for Before Crisis. So yeah, someone who clearly has quite the connection with FF7 and its characters, so I personally don't have an issue with him writing this. If I had to assume what they mean by their, quote, unknown paths, this is going to fill some gaps in their pasts, given the title Two Pasts. Maybe some more of Tifa's childhood, some stuff with Cloud and Nibelheim and the like. When it comes to Aerith though, I could see this covering some of her and Elmira's past, but outside of that, I really can't think for too much of Aerith off the top of my head. Though this is pure speculation to be fair, nothing is confirmed obviously. Now, as exciting as this is, it sadly runs into the same problem that Material Ultimania Plus has at the moment, which is that this is a Japanese exclusive at the moment with no word on an English release. Hell, we're really going into Alice territory now. Obviously this is a bit disappointing, but I'm optimistic that we'll eventually see an English release along with Material Ultimania Plus. According to Audrey, the novel itself is 288 pages long, which is pretty damn sizable. Audrey has also mentioned that she'll be summarizing all the chapters when it releases. So when it comes to the release dates of both books, we have info. First of all, you can pre-order both of these at the moment, but again be wary that they're not translated. Secondly, both of these books will be releasing on July 15th, and the light novel itself costs roughly $15 US. However, you can pre-order them in a pack for roughly $51. However, there's actually going to be something else. Strangely enough, a postcard-sized children's book featuring Stamp, who I think most of you FF7R fans are aware of by now. This comes bundled with the Ultimania and light novel bundle and is about Stamp running errands. Strangely enough though, the book itself will be shown with an FF7 Remake Intergrade 2. Really, I can't see why they're including this, but it wouldn't surprise me if it's something kind of important given how random it really is. Either way, that's all the info we have at the moment. I'm really excited for these overall, especially as someone who's a big fan of the characters of Aerith and Tifa, and hey, maybe this will stop stupid shipping wars on Twitter!
You serious?
But I am pretty excited for both of these, especially Trace of Two Pasts. Either way, we'll find out the contents of both of these books on July 15th. So, with that said, what do you all think? Are you excited for these, and in particular, is there anything you want to hear about from either? Let me know down below. Thank you all very much for watching, have a great night, stay safe, and signing off. Peace out.